Hello, everybody. Welcome into the cycle. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined today, and as I will be all season long, by Mike Maher. It is our first in-season episode of the 2025 season. Very exciting. We are transitioning from our off-season coverage, which was very fun. We're doing every week, to kind of a similar pattern to what we were doing last year, Maher. We're going to hit on kind of rounding the bases at the top, some of the big topics of the week and news items, maybe some injuries that stand out that are worth hitting on that maybe we want to take a bigger picture view than the guys on Leading Off were able to do on their daily show. We'll talk about some waiver pickups we like. We'll talk about some buy lows and sell highs. And we, of course, are going to talk about our two-start pitcher competition and maybe some streaming pitchers that we like and some weekend excitement as well. That's all going to be together on one episode in the audio side. For those on the YouTube side, we are going to be splitting up this show kind of into 3 parts throughout the year. So you can check us out on YouTube if you just want to hit that middle section of the show or the end section. You just really care about the two-star pitchers or you just care about the news and notes. Whatever it is, hopefully you watch all of them. We would love that. But that is going to be split up on video just so everybody knows what to expect on that end. On the audio side, this will be the exact same as last year. It'll be a similar length show and a similar conversation from us. And by the way, if any of that you guys sounds really good or really bad, let us know in the comments. We want the show to be a reflection of what you guys want to hear and what you guys want us to be talking about. So we really encourage the any critique or any thoughts on just what you like and what you don't like, what works and what doesn't, and what we can do to make this show better for you, the listeners, because you guys are the reason we're doing this in the first place. Maher, how are you doing? How are you feeling a week into the season?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm excited for the in-season version of the show. Like you said, the audio is going to be like one full episode. The video is going to be 3 videos, just because that's what the data shows that people like. They like shorter, digestible videos, but on the audio side, they like one long listen. So we're giving the people what they want. I'm excited to get back into the in-season version of the show, kind of, hitting that rhythm that we got into last year. The off-season's fun, but I like kind of like the repetitive nature of the in-season schedule, especially because like as I'm watching baseball throughout the week, I'm just thinking about like what we're going to talk about. I'm like, oh, let me write that down so we can talk about it.
Just so everybody knows, we are taping this a day earlier than usual. Our rhythm will be recording this on Thursdays, likely coming out on Fridays, something around that rhythm. The video might be kind of spread out throughout the weekend. This week we are taping it on Wednesday, which I just bring up to say it's early enough that could make a real difference in terms of some of the stats we're talking about. So if we're referencing a stat line, it was really like as of Tuesday night when we were putting together the outline. So a little earlier in the week than normal, or if any other kind of news develops, a major injury that you're wondering why we didn't hit on. That is why. Let's jump right in. And there is no better place, Maher, to start the cycle this year than with a player hitting for the cycle. Carson Kelly did it a couple of days ago. You immediately slacked me and said, we have to talk about this on the show. I'm not sure how much fantasy takeaway you can ever really take from a player hitting for the cycle, but what a fun way to start off the season.
Yeah, and a couple fun details to him hitting for the cycle. 1, he's a catcher, so we got a catcher hitting for the cycle. And 2, the final leg of the cycle was a triple. So it was always the hardest one to get. Normally when you see a player hit for the cycle, it feels like they get the triple early. And it's like later in the game, like all he needs is a single. And it's like, maybe he can stretch it out to a double, but they just stop at first. He finished with hitting for a triple, and he hit a ball to like right center and it like bounced off the wall. And he said in the interview, like he saw that, like, he made contact. He said, I got that pretty good. And then he saw it like carry him off the wall and kind of go past the outfielder. And like, he was like rounding first. And like in his mind, he was like, I got to get to third. Like I got to get on my horse and get to third to get this cycle. And he did it. So I love that he was like thinking about it and like, he's like, no matter what, I'm getting to third base here.
Gunnar Henderson last year, I think it was either last year or the year before. I want to say it was last year. At any rate, he, in a game against the Athletics, had already hit a home run, a double, and a triple. And the Orioles were up by like 10. Like it wasn't a close game. And late in that game, I think it was like the 8th inning or something, he hit a ball that was a very clear single and had a hustle play that he turned it into a double. And everybody on the bench was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, take the single, take the cycle. And he was like, sorry, I saw an opportunity to take an extra base. I'm like, that's just the way I'm wired. And so he stretched a clear single into a double to rob himself of a cycle. Carson Kelly, I mean, from a fantasy perspective? Is this something that stands out to you as meaningful that we should be? I mean, his roster percentage on Yahoo and ESPN is like under 5%. So, not exactly an exciting player. Does this change that at all for you or no?
No. It's just, unless you're just streaming catchers or running with like a Franken-catcher approach, and it's a fun story for you. Like, congrats to you if you were streaming Carson Kelly for the 4% of you out there doing victory laps. Like, good for you. I also feel like I'm the kind of player, I'm like the opposite of Gunnar Henderson. It could be like a 2-2 game and I put like a ball in the gap. I'll probably like pretend to roll my ankle around first and like crawl back to the bag.
I'll hit doubles like in softball
Flex
a lot. I don't stretch those into triples. Like, even if I think I could, it's like running half the way around the bases. That I'm in my 30s now. That's enough for me. Another player who kind of had a standout performance, Nathan Eovaldi tosses the first Maddux of 2025. Just for the people, Maher, do you want to explain what a Maddux is in case they don't know?
Complete game shutout in fewer than 100 pitches. Is it a shutout or just a complete game in fewer than 100 pitches? Good question.
I thought it was just a complete game, but I actually guess I don't know now that you asked the question. I thought it was a complete game with under 100.
Yeah, I think it's just a complete game and under 100.
But his was a shutout.
Yeah, and his happened to be a shutout, a 1-0 game, so they needed that shutout as much as I wanted that.
You have a note in here. Is he a new contender for best pitcher in baseball? Last year, of course, the best pitcher in baseball all season long. There was no debate. It was Ranger Suarez. Is Nathan Eovaldi that guy for this year? I invested a lot in Eovaldi. Not that I spent up to get him, but I have him in a lot of places at cost. Not that he was like a flag plant for me or anything, but I did kind of like the value in drafts this year. I know you have him in one of our leagues that we're in together. Is he somebody you were targeting this year? Does this make you feel better? But I mean, on the one hand, like, I don't really love a guy going 9 innings, like first start of the season, who has an injury history and is in his mid-30s. On the other hand, it wasn't Maddux, so it's not like he threw too many pitches.
Yeah, it was the second start of the season because he also dominated the Red Sox in his first start.
Oh, right. Yeah, not the first.
Red Sox fan, I watched him do that. He wasn't someone I was targeting, but I think I might only have that one share of him. It was just like someone in the middle rounds. If you're like need pitching, someone who's just usually there for you. Like, he's gonna, he's not gonna be an ace, but he's probably not gonna be terrible either. He should just be like a workhorse for you, as long as he stays healthy. We did the Ranger Suarez best pitcher in baseball joke for so long this year that I don't even really remember how it started. But I think it did start with he was like one of the only pitchers to throw like a shutout. And then I think he had like 2 shutouts like early in the season, and like no one else had thrown any yet or something like that.
It was did he throw he threw a no-hitter? No. Or was it just a shutout?
I can't even remember.
Because it was like his first start of the season. Maybe it wasn't a no-hitter. Maybe it was just a shutout. But it was like a great I thought it was a no-hitter. I'm looking it up now.
I thought at one point we were like looking at like who had thrown like a shutout in the year, and at one point it was like Ranger Suarez had 2 and no one else had any, and we were like, is Ranger Suarez the best pitcher?
He started really early. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a no-hitter. I don't know why I was thinking that, but it was a shutout. Yeah. That's why that's where that bit came from for anybody who thinks that we're crazy and actually believe Ranger Suarez is the best pitcher in baseball. Let's talk about some guys on the opposite end of that spectrum who are starting very slow. Do we have any concerns about these studs? I just kind of wrote down a few of them that have started slow and want to get your opinion on them. We kind of have to start with the most obvious slow starting stud of the season, Rafael Devers. Will he ever record a base hit again? I put that to you, Mike Maher.
Like, maybe not. No, I mean, like, it's, we could go through like all the names of the names that we're about to talk about. He is the one I'm by far the most concerned about, just because there's a lot going on there. I think the weight thing is being blown out of proportion. People think maybe he put on some weight, and there was like a graphic on MLB Network that like did him no favors, because it did look like he put on some weight in like the side-by-side view of like his batting stances from like one year to the other, but like the one side was like much more zoomed in, so it made him look like even bigger. But there were concerns about his shoulders coming into last season, concerned about his shoulders coming into this season, and then he got like a really slow start to spring training, in part because of the shoulder and because of his like timing, but also he was kind of upset about like the Alex Bregman acquisition and like not playing third base anymore. And I remember in spring training, he kept getting scratched because, and like the reasoning at the time was like, oh, his timing's just not right. Like, he needs another day in the cages before he can get out there on the field. And now he's out there in the field, and his timing is just like the worst I've ever seen it. I've watched a lot of Rafael Devers over the years as a Red Sox fan. And like he's missing 91-mile-an-hour fastballs right down the middle of the plate, and he's just like late on them. His timing is off. He's really late on everything. He's not. It's not like he's like just missing hits. He's striking out. Like he's like 0 for whatever the number is. It's like up to like 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts. It's bad, and it's as bad as anyone in baseball right now.
I mean, you were kind of joking about like how bad he's been, and I knew he'd been really bad. And then I went to his game log, and I was like, oh, it's like. He looks like if I was trying to hit a baseball right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the stats are remarkable. It's something like, 15 strikeouts and 19 at bats or something like that. I mean, it is like remarkably bad.
It's so bad that I was actually looking, and I'll mention this later when we're talking about more players, but I was on like the FantasyPros, like the hitter stats page. And I was filtering by VBR to like see like, I was looking for like waiver wire targets, like who's been the best or who's off to a really slow start that I can like kind of target, because like that'll show you like their value based on their current stats. And I'm looking and I'm like, I almost messaged our dev team because I was like, I can't find Rafael Devers anywhere. And then I was like, oh, I'm only looking at the top 300. He's below that. I have to turn the filter off. And he's, lo and behold, he is 392 out of 394 among like all hitters right now.
That's better than I would have guessed.
Yeah. Well,
too high.
I'm going to talk about 394 out of 394 in a few minutes. But yeah, like 0 for 19, 15 strikeouts, 4 walks. He does have 1 RBI, so congrats to you on getting that one counting stat out of him. But I made a joke on Twitter the other day of like I was playing around with that like new ChatGPT like image generator, because everyone's talking about the like torpedo bats, and I was like, it looks like he might be using like Swiss cheese bat because he's just swinging through everything right now.
There was a great meme of somebody talking about the torpedo bats, and they were like, it was Javi Baez swinging like an oar, like just trying to flail at a ball 3 feet outside. Which is great. We'll go a little quicker on some of these other studs. I don't think we need to really hit on like, are we buying or selling these guys yet? It's so early. But just for Devers, because it is so extreme, I do want to ask you, is he somebody that you would get out from any cost? Like, I know you spent a lot on him on draft day, but sell if you can get anything? Or would you be on the opposite end of that and say, listen, I'll buy the dip on him?
I think I would be on both ends. If the price is extreme enough. Like, I don't want to just give him up for nothing because – I know there's like the sunk cost fallacy, but like you said, you did draft him fairly high, and it's April 2nd. You can't, or April, by the time you're listening to this, April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th, you can't just give up on a player the first week of April, like regardless of how bad they are, if they're like a top 3 or 4 round pick for you. So if someone wants to offer you like maybe like a slight dip, like they talked leading off today, like, would you flip like, would you take Alex Bregman for Rafael Devers, even though Bregman is off to a slow start? I'd consider that, like it's not that far of a dip. The other complicating factor there, if you're going to like sell Devers, is like third base is really shallow this year. So if you drafted Devers fairly high, you probably don't have a great third base replacement on your team because you probably thought like, hey, my position's set right there. And there's not exactly a lot out there on the waiver wire either. But I'd also like, if someone's like giving away for nothing, I'll buy really low and like see what happens.
In our deep keeper salary cap draft, I basically punted on third base, and I ended up with Josh Young, and he got hurt. And so my starting third baseman already week 2 of the season is Ryan McMahon. Yeah. So
I have a lot of Ryan McMahon for that reason right now.
That tells you kind of what the state of third base is and what's available on the waiver wire. Some of the other slow starting studs I wrote down. Jackson Chourio, he did start slow last year. He also started slow the year before in the minors. So maybe he is somebody that just takes a while to get going. I think a lot of us thought last year it was him adjusting to the big leagues. This could be proven wrong, right? Obviously, we're only a handful of days into the season, but maybe he is just one of those habitual slow starters. So a slow start for him. Yordan Alvarez, as of the time I was putting together this outline, 1 for 16. Francisco Lindor, 1 for 15 on the season. And then so far, not seeing the bounce back from Matt Olson that maybe you and I thought could happen. Any of those guys stick out to you as extra concerning or extra not concerning?
None of them are on the level of Rafael Devers for me, like not even close. I will also say, I know, a little inside baseball here behind the scenes. You just, as your host extraordinaire that you are, you just jumped from one show, recording one show into this show. Jackson Chourio did homer today while you were recording that show. So he is on the board with at least one home run.
That's great. I have him in that league where I have Ryan McMahon. So home run from Churrio is going to help quite a bit. I do want to let everybody know that if you want a chance to win a signed Nico Horner Cubs jersey for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros MLB YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on any video, and that's it. We'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. All right, we have to talk about the Torpedo bats.
Do we? Do we have to?
I think, yes, of course we do. We don't have to have any particular opinion on them, but we absolutely have to talk about them. Just they are the talk of baseball right now. Obviously, the Yankees have broken out these Torpedo bats. Other teams have done a little bit with them as well. To be clear, somebody like Aaron Judge is not using this with his really hot start, but a handful of the players are, and they're hitting a ton of home runs. Now, is it the Brewers pitching staff is off to a really poor start? Is it that the Yankees play in a ballpark that would be too small for my high school? Who's to say? But these Torpedo bats are the talk of baseball right now. To what degree do you attribute their hot start to the Torpedo bats? Because I think anybody reasonable would say it's elements of multiple different factors, but to what degree would you attribute the Torpedo bats?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all three things. I think it's the ballpark. I think it's the Brewers pitching, and I think the bats are probably helping. I also, something we can get into a little bit, I'm a little concerned that the balls are juiced again, like not like 2019 levels, but there is some really early data that's kind of, showing that their balls are, bouncier or jumpier, juicier, whatever you want to call it, like, jumping off bats a little bit more. And like I said, really early, really small sample size. But I'm also concerned that could also be a factor here, which would just be terrible for baseball and also for fantasy analysis, because it makes it even harder. If the data is just really inconsistent from year to year, it's like, oh, this guy hit 30 home runs, but also we've talked about it before, like when we're like looking back of, oh, this guy had a really good 2019, but oh yeah, that was the year the balls were like super juiced. So I'm a little bit worried about that. I'm interested to see how the Torpedo bats go. I've seen other people talk about it. It wouldn't have gotten so much like airtime if not for just how many home runs the Yankees are hitting, and they're not all because of the Torpedo bats. A few of those first home runs were like right over the right field wall, which is like 10 feet behind first base in Yankee Stadium. And so it's just like amplified that much more because of how many home runs they're hitting. But it's all those factors combined. But you're seeing it around baseball. All these other players are like, all right, let me place an order. Let me get my my order in for these different Torpedo bats. But I will say the one thing, it sounds like the Yankees did a lot of research on this, and they don't just have like default Torpedo bats. They have bats like specifically designed for that batter and where he normally makes contact.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to bring up, is I wonder to what degree in the long term we will see these being super individualized to, hey, we know based on not only your swing mechanics, but your swing mechanics against certain pitching profiles. And today we want you to use this Torpedo bat because you're facing a soft tossing lefty, but tomorrow we want you to use this Torpedo bat because you're facing a guy with some real heat. Or later in the game they bring on a reliever who throws 98 miles an hour. Well, now we want you to switch to this bat. I wonder to what degree we see that individualization happening with these bats.
Switch hitters will probably have like two different bats for what's on the plate they're on.
I would be shocked if that's not the case. Like, so I'm all for it. Like, if it's not against the rules, like I don't see any reason why this is something they shouldn't be doing. It's like, why weren't you doing this before if this was within the rules? And we've been in the Moneyball era for 20 plus years and trying to find any small edge we can. See, why did it take this long to get here? But we'll continue to monitor that and see what happens. I know you wanted to hit a little bit on some of the new ballpark stuff just from watching kind of how the ball's flying out.
Yeah, just real quick, the one thing we talked about kind of leading into the season was the new A's ballpark that they're playing in Sacramento, and just the dimensions are almost identical to what they played in Oakland. There was a lot of questions like, is it going to be kind of like a pitcher's park like Oakland was, even though it's kind of the same dimensions, just not as much foul territory. I watched the first game the other night, and the ball was flying out of that ballpark, and we'll see if that remains the case, but like, if it's flying out of the ballpark in March and April, what's going to be happening in July in that ballpark? And so, like, maybe that's, maybe the balls are in play there too. But the ball was flying out of that ballpark the other night. It was a very high scoring game, and I was just like sitting there working on some things, watching that game, being like, oh boy, this might be a fun season in this ballpark.
I want to highlight some early surprising standouts and league leaders. Just a couple of names here that I wrote down throughout the week that I thought were worth hitting on. Mackenzie Gore, awesome first start, 13 strikeouts against the Phillies. Looked really dominant doing it. Eugenio Suarez, home run machine. We're going to hit on him a little bit later, so we can kind of save that conversation. And then O'Neal Cruz. At the time I wrote this down, 5 stolen bases. Also, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, 4. And I kind of highlighted that Pittsburgh leads baseball with 17 steals this season. No other team above 10. They have at least 2 more in the game going on as we're recording this, including a 6th by Cruz. So that just really stands out to me. If they're going to be this aggressive, that will be really, really exciting for Cruz managers this year in any format where steals are going to be valuable.
He also just hit his second home run today, too.
Oh, he just hit. Oh, excellent. O'Neal Cruz season is here. Any of those stand out to you, like the power speed from Cruz this year, just the Pirates in general, going to be really aggressive on the bases? Gore's 13 strikeouts, anything a highlight for you?
It is really interesting to see that it's again very early, but that the Pirates are being this much more aggressive than anyone else is something you definitely have to take into account, because it doesn't even really include Brian Reynolds yet, because it sounds like he's dealing with some minor injuries. But yeah, if that's something you're going to have to consider in fantasy, if, looking for steals on the waiver wire, who's playing for the Pirates this week.
Yeah. Like you said, it's not that they're being aggressive or more aggressive than anybody. It's like the gap between Pittsburgh and everybody else. And again, still early, so that could shrink, but that's pretty eyebrow raising. Seeing that, you have a bunch of notes written down here kind of for news, notes, and injuries. I'm just going to let you speed run through this since you were the one who kind of put together all this. So what are some of the highlights of just in this first week or so, some of the news, notes, and injuries from around the league?
Yeah, we'll go speed around with some news, notes, and injuries. The Dodgers acquiring more players. They just acquired Asterio Ruiz today. I don't know that that's going to be the most relevant thing for fantasy, although he speaking of stolen bases, he's someone who can steal them in bunches. He wasn't really playing for the A's. He kind of fell out of favor there. I just don't know he's going to play every day for the Dodgers. He's going to, if they don't stick him in the minors, he's probably just going to be on the bench for them. But something to monitor, if he plays at all for the Dodgers, he's going to have some value because of that lineup and because he can run. Tobias Myers, the Brewers, fantasy managers probably need pitching. The Brewers definitely need pitching. It sounds like he can go on a rehab assignment next week, so he could be coming back soon. I know I have him stashed in a few leagues. Brian Reynolds, like I mentioned, dealing with some tricep soreness. It's impacting his ability to play the field, but he is in the lineup, but he is off to a slow start, so something to monitor there. Did it for Corey Seager, dealing with a calf issue. Again, in the lineup, but off to a slow start, so 2 nagging injuries there. Zachary Neto begins a rehab assignment. By the time you listen to this, he will already be on that rehab assignment. Not sure if he's going to play the field or just DH to start, but also it's just a good sign that he's going out there because we weren't sure how early that was going to be. And as if things weren't going poorly enough for the Braves, who are winless as of this recording, but pitcher Reynaldo Lopez is undergoing arthroscopic shoulder surgery. And it sounds like it's not like season-ending shoulder surgery. It was more of like exploratory surgery to relieve something of what he's dealing with. But they still think he's going to miss a couple of months. Whereas if it was like a torn labrum or something, he would be done for the year, or rotator cuff, he would be done for the year. But it sounds like he could be back in several weeks to a couple months or so. But regardless, going to be out for a while.
What would you say is more surprising to you, that the Braves have 0 wins or that the White Sox have 2?
That's I'm not sure. I posed on in the comments on leading off this morning, what happens first? The Braves win a game or Rafael Devers gets a hit?
I don't know which side of that I would take. Speaking of, welcome to this week's Chasing Challenges, brought to you by Microsoft. Just like the athletes who push boundaries and redefine what's possible, business decision makers today are turning challenges into opportunities. Microsoft meets you where you are with tools and guidance that help you make an impact with safe, secure AI solutions. Players and teams are facing their own challenges. In this segment, we spotlight athletes or teams that are currently undergoing a challenge, what this means from a fantasy or betting standpoint, and examine how we think they can overcome them. Whatever challenge you're facing, Microsoft empowers you with the expertise to say, say, bring it on. This week, we're discussing the challenge faced by Rafael Devers to start the 2025 season. Devers has been unimaginably bad to start the year, going 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts, 4 walks, and just 1 RBI. This comes on the heels of a relatively down and injury-plagued 2024, plus a position switch off third base after the addition of Alex Bregman to the lineup in the offseason. How can Devers overcome his disastrous start? For one, he'll need to start putting the ball in play to give himself a chance rather than striking out nearly every at-bat. For another, he'll need to speed up his bat, which is down about 2.5 miles per hour according to StatCast. He'll also need to focus on simply squaring up the ball, as he's currently in the first percentile across Major League Baseball in that metric. Again, first is bad. Devers can do it, as he's been one of baseball's most consistent hitters throughout his career, but some changes need to happen or he might find himself losing more at-bats as the season goes on. That's it for this week's Chasing Challenges. Remember, Microsoft's AI solutions empower you to take bold steps and make informed decisions, sparking new ideas to help drive your business forward. With Microsoft as your trusted partner, you can navigate your journey with confidence, finding innovative solutions and reaching new possibilities. Visit Microsoft.com/challengers to learn more.